Picture this. You've poured months of work into a project that could define your career. You've lost sleep over it. You've canceled dinners, skipped weekends, even kept sticky notes on your bathroom mirror just to stay on top of deadlines. Now imagine an intern, someone who's been at the company for barely 2 weeks, struts in and tries to take it all away. She interrupts meetings, rewrites your plans, and acts like she's the boss. What happens when arrogance collides with reality? Well, let's just say her epic fail turned out to be the best revenge I never even had to plan. Let me take you back to where it all began. My name's Madison and I work as a project manager at a mid-sized tech company in Seattle. We're not a Google or Microsoft, but we're big enough to handle million-dollar clients and competitive enough that one mistake can sink a career. I've been with the company for 5 years. I climbed from an assistant role to project coordinator, and eventually to manager. I earned my place through late nights, early mornings, and learning to deal with all kinds of personalities, from brilliant engineers who speak in code, to executives who only care about bottom lines. That summer, we were gearing up for a huge rollout. It wasn't glamorous like launching a social media app. It was back-end software for a logistics company, a system that would streamline how thousands of deliveries were tracked across the country. Boring to most people, maybe. But for us? This project was the Super Bowl. The client had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. My boss, a sharp but fair guy named Robert, made it clear. Madison, this is your baby. I trust you. And I did take it personally because I wanted to prove not just to him but to myself that I was ready for bigger things. That's when Jessica entered the picture. She was a summer intern, fresh out of her sophomore year in business school. I remember her first day vividly. She walked in with this crisp navy blazer, perfectly ironed slacks, and a tote bag that screamed new money. She shook everyone's hand like she'd practiced in front of a mirror. "Hi, I'm Jessica. Super excited to be here," she said, flashing a smile that was a little too confident for someone who didn't yet know where the bathrooms were. "Don't get me wrong, I actually love interns. I used to be one. I know how awkward it feels to be the youngest in the room, trying to prove yourself without stepping on toes. So I went out of my way to make her feel welcome. I introduced her to the team, showed her where we keep the snacks, even gave her tips on the office coffee machine, which has a mind of its own. At first, she seemed eager to learn. She shadowed me in meetings, took notes, and asked plenty of questions, sometimes too many, but I brushed it off. Better curious than clueless, right? Except there was something in her tone. She didn't ask questions like she wanted to learn. She asked them like she was testing me, like she was waiting for me to slip up so she could correct me. I noticed it during a client call in her very first week. Client. So how will the migration affect downtime? I was about to answer when Jessica jumped in. We could actually minimize downtime by compressing the staging window, she suggested. The client paused. Robert looked at me. I forced a smile and gently redirected. That's an interesting idea, Jessica. But let's stick to the agreed timeline for now. Everyone chuckled politely. We moved on. But inside I was thinking, girl, you've been here 3 days. Maybe sit this one out. Outside of work, life was the usual grind. My morning started at 6:30 with a jog around Green Lake, then a strong cup of coffee, 2 pumps hazelnut, oat milk, no sugar. I needed that ritual to survive the endless emails waiting in my inbox. My desk was a war zone of sticky notes, passwords, deadlines, vendor contacts. My phone buzzed constantly with Slack notifications. That project consumed my life and I didn't mind because I wanted it to. Meanwhile, Jessica treated the office like a stage. She strutted in wearing outfits that screamed "I'm here to impress," tapping away on her MacBook Air with color-coded folders that, honestly, looked more like props than actual work. First, I thought it was harmless. She was young, ambitious, a little showy, but hey, maybe she'd grow into the role. Little did I know. This was just the calm before the storm. It started small. Jessica began forwarding my project emails to executives with her own commentary added. Not rude exactly, but presumptuous. Just a thought, could we accelerate the timeline by 2 weeks? She'd write. Or, I believe we can cut costs by reducing testing phases. I'd log in and see threads of replies between her and senior staff on my project. At lunch one day, I gently pulled her aside. Hey Jessica, I love your enthusiasm, but remember, all client-facing communication goes through me. That's just protocol. She tilted her head and gave me this half smile. Oh, of course, Madison. I just thought I could add some value, you know? Show initiative. I nodded, but inside I was uneasy. Initiative is good. But this felt like something else. That weekend, I vented to my roommate over takeout sushi. She's 20 years old and she talks like she's running the company. It's wild. My roommate laughed. Maybe she's just trying to prove herself. You were ambitious too at that age. Sure, I said, sipping my miso soup. But I didn't hijack my boss's project. I laughed it off then. But deep down, I knew this was going to get worse before it got better. And I was right. What started as small interruptions and overconfident emails soon snowballed into full-blown attempts to take over. The first real showdown? A meeting where Jessica connected her laptop to the projector before I even walked in. The thing about arrogance is that it rarely shows up all at once. It's like a slow leak. You don't notice it at first, but eventually the whole room is flooded. Jessica's overconfidence trickled in little by little. By week 3, it wasn't just suggestions or innocent questions. It was full-blown interruptions, self-promotion, and believe it or not, attempts to rebrand my project as her own. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I walked into conference room B, latte in one hand, stack of neatly organized notes in the other. My plan was simple. Run through the updated project timeline, get executive approval, and keep things moving. But when I stepped inside, I froze. There was Jessica, standing at the head of the table, her laptop already connected to the projector. Slides I'd never seen before lit up the screen in bold colors. Oh, hey, Madison, she chirped like nothing was wrong. I went ahead and put together some improvements to the timeline. Thought we could start with this. The executives glanced at me, eyebrows raised. I forced a tight smile and slid into my chair. Great, Jessica. Why don't you walk us through it? My voice was calm, but inside, my blood pressure was skyrocketing. She clicked to the next slide. So, I noticed the testing phase was scheduled for 6 weeks. I cut it down to 2. I also moved up the launch date by a full month. That way, the client saves money and we look super efficient. I nearly choked on my coffee. 6 weeks of testing wasn't a random number. It was carefully calculated with vendor requirements, compliance needs, and risk mitigation. Cutting it down to 2 was like skipping the crash test on a new car and hoping for the best. Robert, my boss, leaned forward. Jessica, that's ambitious. But Madison, what do you think? I inhaled slowly, choosing my words carefully. It's certainly creative. But we have contractual obligations with the client. Testing can't be shortened without risking system failure. The cost of downtime would far outweigh any savings. Jessica waved her hand dismissively. Sure, but if we don't try to push boundaries, how will we stand out? The executives chuckled politely. Some looked entertained. Others annoyed. I kept my poker face on, but in my head I was screaming. This is not Shark Tank. This is my career. After the meeting, I pulled Jessica aside. Look, I said firmly but quietly, I appreciate your energy, but you can't just rewrite the roadmap without consulting me. There are things you don't see yet. Risks, vendor constraints, client expectations. She crossed her arms. Madison, with all due respect, I think you're being too cautious. Sometimes you just have to take bold steps. I blinked at her, stunned. Too cautious? I wasn't cautious, I was responsible. But arguing with her in the hallway would only make me look petty, so I bit my tongue. For now. The next week, my inbox became a battlefield. Jessica sent long, elaborate emails to senior managers, saying half the office, outlining her vision for the project. She'd pepper her notes with buzzwords like disruption, innovation, and cutting edge, as if throwing in enough Silicon Valley jargon would magically erase all the risks. One morning, I opened my email to find, Hi team, just a thought, if we skip phase 2 testing, we can shave 3 weeks off the rollout. Madison and I have discussed this at length and we're aligned. Aligned? We had never discussed that. My stomach flipped. She wasn't just overstepping, she was flat out lying. I drafted a reply, deleted it, redrafted it. Finally I sent, Thanks for the note, Jessica. Just to clarify, we are not skipping phase 2 testing. The timeline remains as originally approved. I hit send, my fingers trembling with frustration. Moments later, Robert pinged me on Slack. Madison, handling this gracefully. Keep documenting everything." That message gave me a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief that he saw what was happening. Dread that it meant things were about to get worse. It wasn't just me who noticed. The team started whispering. One afternoon, I grabbed a salad from the cafeteria and overheard two developers chuckling. "Did you see Jessica's email? She thinks we can rebuild the whole database in a week." "Yeah, good luck with that. It took us 3 months last time." They looked up guiltily when they saw me. No offense, Madison. We know you've got this under control." I smiled weakly, but inside I felt a pang of embarrassment. The intern was making me, and my project, look like a circus act. The breaking point came when I saw a calendar invite pop up. Client alignment meeting hosted by Jessica. I stared at the screen, my coffee going cold. She had scheduled a call with my client, without telling me. I stormed over to her desk. "Jessica, what is this?" I asked, pointing at the invite on my phone. She looked up casually. "Oh, I thought it would be good to keep the client looped in on my streamline plan. I didn't want to bother you with the scheduling." "Didn't want to bother me?" I clenched my jaw. "Jessica, I lead client communications. Always. Do not set up meetings without me again. Do you understand?" She rolled her eyes ever so slightly. "Got it. But Madison, maybe the client will appreciate fresh thinking. Sometimes leadership means taking initiative." I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced a smile and walked away. But in that moment I knew. This wasn't just arrogance anymore. This was a full-blown attempt to take over my project. And if she wanted a stage, well, she was about to get one. The stage where she'd crash and burn. So I didn't stop her. I let Jessica plan her little client alignment meeting. I let her prepare her flashy deck with promises she couldn't keep. And when the day came, I made sure the right people were watching. What happened next was the single most satisfying moment of my entire career. The day of the meeting arrived like a storm cloud. I woke up early, even earlier than usual. My morning jog felt heavier, my coffee tasted bitter. My nerves were buzzing, but not from fear. No, I was excited, because I knew exactly what was about to happen. Jessica had arranged everything: slides, calendar invites, even a meeting room big enough to fit half the company. She thought this was going to be her moment of glory. But in reality, she was about to hand me the easiest win of my career. I walked into the boardroom 5 minutes early, my notepad in hand. The long mahogany table gleamed under the fluorescent lights. On the wall, the client's logo was projected on the first slide of Jessica's deck. Jessica was already there, of course. Dressed in a bright red blazer like she was giving a TED Talk, she greeted the executives one by one with a firm handshake. "So glad you could make it. This will be exciting," she said, practically glowing. Robert, my boss, caught my eye and gave me the faintest smirk. He knew what was coming too. One by one, the clients joined via video call. Their faces appeared on the screen. 3 people in business attire, polite but cautious. Jessica cleared her throat, stood tall, and began. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I've prepared a new vision for this rollout. One that saves time, cuts costs, and positions us as true innovators." I leaned back in my chair, pen poised, ready to watch it all unfold. She clicked to the second slide. "As you can see, by reducing testing phases and accelerating deployment, we can launch a full month earlier than originally planned. This means reduced overhead and a faster ROI for your company." The clients nodded slowly. One scribbled notes. Another tilted his head. Jessica's confidence soared. Her voice grew louder, more animated. She threw around words like synergy, optimization, and strategic advantage. On the surface, it all sounded shiny and appealing. But beneath it was empty. She hadn't thought through the risks, the dependencies, or the compliance regulations that bound us legally. And soon the cracks started to show. One client raised his hand slightly. "Excuse me, Jessica. How does your plan address system load testing? We process over 2 million data points per day." Jessica froze for half a second before recovering with a smile. "Well, we can probably manage that within the shortened testing window." Another client leaned forward. "And what about regulatory compliance? Our industry requires third-party validation before launch. That alone usually takes several weeks." Jessica's smile faltered. We Could possibly run validation parallel to deployment? The clients exchanged doubtful looks. Robert folded his hands in front of him, silent but observant. Then came the killer question. What's the contingency plan if the integration fails mid-rollout? Jessica blinked. She opened her mouth, closed it, then stammered. Well, I believe Madison could probably speak to that. And just like that, the spotlight swung to me. I straightened in my chair, my voice calm but firm. Thank you for asking. Here's the reality. Integration failure without adequate testing could cause days, possibly weeks, of downtime. For a logistics company, that translates to millions in losses, not to mention reputational damage. That's why our 6-week testing phase is critical. It ensures load stability, regulatory compliance, and vendor coordination. Cutting that time is not just risky, it's reckless. I saw heads nodding on the screen. One client scribbled furiously. Another leaned back with a sigh of relief. I clicked my own slides, quietly prepared just in case, and walked them through the actual roadmap. The one I had been working on for months. Every milestone, every risk assessment, every backup plan. By the time I finished, the mood in the room had shifted completely. One client smiled. This makes sense. We'd prefer to stick with the original plan. Thank you, Madison. Robert finally spoke. I agree. Madison's roadmap is the one we'll be moving forward with. And just like that, Jessica's empire of overconfidence crumbled to dust. I glanced at Jessica. Her face was pale, her eyes darting between the screen and the executives. She mumbled something about just trying to innovate, but no one responded. The meeting moved on as if she wasn't even there. The once bright red blazer now looked more like a warning sign, danger. Intern overreach ahead. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. The best part? I hadn't lifted a finger to sabotage her. I didn't have to whisper behind her back. I didn't have to delete her slides or correct her in real time. I simply let her arrogance carry her straight into the fire. And when the flames rose high, I calmly walked through them unscathed. That day, I didn't just win back control of my project. I earned the respect of everyone in that room. And Jessica? Well, she earned herself a very painful lesson. After the meeting, the fallout was immediate. HR wanted a word with Jessica. Robert wanted a word with me. And the office gossip mill? Oh, it was buzzing louder than ever. But the aftermath, that's a story in itself. And it's one that left me walking away with the kind of satisfaction you can't put a price on. The meeting ended, but the real fireworks started afterward. As the clients logged off and executives left the boardroom, Jessica lingered, still clutching her red blazer like a life jacket. Robert closed his laptop, gave me a nod and said, "Excellent work, Madison. I'll need you in my office in 20 minutes. Then he turned to Jessica. Jessica, HR wants a word. Now. The look on her face priceless. For once, she wasn't the loudest person in the room. She was silent. And in that silence, I could practically hear her carefully built ego cracking apart. I stepped out into the hallway. Word travels fast in an office, faster than any email system. By the time Jessica walked past the cubicles, whispers were already floating. Heads turned. Brows raised. Some people smirked. She tried to keep her chin up, but her steps were stiff, her lips pressed into a thin line. Me? I went back to my desk, calmly sipping my coffee as if nothing had happened. That's the beauty of letting someone destroy themselves. You don't have to lift a finger. The world does it for you. Later that afternoon, I overheard snippets from HR. Jessica had been pulled into a meeting about misrepresentation of work, unauthorized client presentations, and failure to follow compliance protocols. Heavy words. Words that stick to your record. By the end of the week, she was reassigned to basic administrative tasks. No more projects, no more client-facing work. Just paperwork and scheduling. The office nickname for her changed from Rising Star to something harsher, PowerPoint Princess. And trust me, she hated it. That same day, Robert called me in. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Madison, you handled yourself with incredible professionalism. You didn't interrupt her, you didn't stoop to her level. You simply let the facts speak for themselves. That takes maturity. I nodded. Thank you. I just wanted to protect the integrity of the project. And well, the company too. Robert smiled faintly. And you did. The clients were impressed. In fact, they specifically asked that you continue leading this account. That was it, the final confirmation that I had one. Over the next few days, the gossip mill spun nonstop. Coworkers dropped by my desk, whispering, "That was legendary. I can't believe she thought she could get away with it. You handled it like a pro, Madison." I didn't brag. I didn't need to. Because when the truth is loud enough, you don't have to shout. People already know. Jessica, meanwhile, avoided me like the plague. She no longer strutted through the halls with her chin high. She kept her head down, tapping away at menial spreadsheets. Occasionally, I'd catch her glancing at me. Eyes sharp, lips pressed, but she never said a word. And honestly, that silence was louder than any insult she could have thrown. Because deep down, she knew she had burned her one big chance. And worse, she had no one to blame but herself. In the weeks that followed, I had plenty of time to reflect. Here's what I realized. People like Jessica don't fail because of one big mistake. They fail because of the little choices, the arrogance, the shortcuts, the lack of respect for others, that pile up until everything collapses. She thought success was about being the loudest voice in the room. She thought stealing credit would make her shine brighter. But in the end, she learned the truth. Real success comes from substance, not spectacle. And as for me, I learned that sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all. Just patience. Because arrogant people always trip over their own egos. Arrogance is a fragile crown. You can wear it for a while, walk around like royalty, but eventually gravity wins. The crown slips. And when it falls, everyone sees who you really are. So if you've ever had someone steal your work, take your credit, or try to push you aside, don't panic. Don't rush to fight back. Just keep doing the work. Stay consistent. Stay professional. Because in the end, their downfall will be their own doing. And when that happens, you'll be right there to rise above. That's my story. A story of arrogance, downfall, and poetic justice. So now I want to ask you, have you ever had someone like Jessica in your workplace? Someone who stole your ideas or tried to claim your spotlight? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoyed this tale of downfall and revenge, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because trust me, I've got plenty more stories where this came from. Until next time, remember, success built on lies will always collapse. And when it does, the truth will shine brighter than ever.